what I want to do is I want to get into the $1 million question that I've been so intrigued by, and that is, how does a Englishman from around the Hertfordshire area um, first learn about Islam, and what does that journey look like? I'm sorry to kind of delve straight into it, but
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
got
yeah.
ants in my pants.
Yeah, and I'll try and give a good account of it best I can. So it's because I guess it's a long story because it was a process of over probably a year. But if I took myself, I've been Muslim now 2.5 years. If I took myself back, say 4 years ago, I was someone who very happy with his life, happy with my friendship groups, happy with the way I was living. I wasn't really looking for religion because a lot of people believe, that us converts to Islam are always people that have sort of hit rock bottom and pulled themselves up. That's not really my story. I was fairly happy as I was, but I'd say I was on the more anti-Islam side. Now, when I say that, I wasn't, somebody who was campaigning against Islam or anything like that, but I certainly subscribed to Tommy Robinson's way of thinking, where, because in the media, as an Englishman, you hear about grooming gangs, you hear about terrorism, and you hear these things, and no one wants that in their country. And so for me, in my mind, I was pretty ignorant. I didn't really look much into it, but I just thought in the back of my mind, there's something not quite right, with Islam, because all this stuff's going on in that community. But if I go back even further, my sister converted to Islam probably about 20 years ago,
Oh wow.
and I had a really bad relationship with my sister. Not because of the Islam, but we fell out, and we didn't really talk. But she'd become Muslim and cleaned her life up. But as the years went on, she met a Pakistani guy, got married, and had a child.
So she
Um, uh,
converted before getting married.
she converted before.
I see.
Yes, yes. But she met this guy first and converted before getting
I see.
married.
I see. I see. I see. I see.
And then, like I say, this was a long time ago. But she had a daughter, little Aman, my niece, and thankfully my sister would allow me to see my niece. So every weekend, we'd pop to a restaurant, and we'd sit there and have chats. So she's reached the age of 4 or 5, and I think I was concerned that I knew that I had a family member who I loved. I don't have children of my own, and I sort of invested a lot of love into my niece. I was very concerned that she was being raised as a Muslim. So I thought she's gonna start covering herself when she's older. She's gonna meet a Muslim guy that's probably gonna treat her terribly, and I didn't really want this for her. So I started looking into Islam, and we used to have little chats, me and Imam, even when she was sort of 6, 7. I remember her saying to me, Uncle Jordan, I don't want you to go to the hellfire and things like that. And I remember just having these chats with her, and I remember over Christmas time her saying to me, Allah doesn't have a son, Uncle Jordan. And I remember we just have these chats. But anyway, it gave me a reason to start looking into Islam. Which was so, because I think otherwise I wouldn't have bothered. So I think everyone needs a kind of a trigger first. And so I started looking into it. I started reading about Islam, and to be honest, the more I started to look into Islam, I started finding out that my niece was suddenly going to be protected from all of the stuff that I saw girls growing up being affected by. All of a sudden, I thought my niece she's going to not dress, revealing. She's not going to go through all that. She's going to be brought up with respect and strict kind of traditional values. And to me, all of a sudden, that became very attractive. And so it was over a process where I suddenly realized that actually, even though I've got these issues with Islam, how Islam treats its women, and how it treats its women it's like they're special. It holds, I was reading about what the Quran says about the mother, how it highlights the being good to your wife, and all of these things, and all the misconceptions I had about the beat your wife first, and all these different things. I started to realize that they're not true, and my niece is all of a sudden protected by being Muslim. So and that's sort of as far as it went for that time, but then I think I then started to look more and more into Islam to the point where I was getting a bit obsessed with it. So I started to look into all different things, and then like I said, I'm sort of paraphrasing or starting to sort of put it all together. Is that I had to then hold a mirror up to myself and say, well, actually, if I think Islam is something beautiful and something for protection, how would it is it something for me? Is it something? And the other thing it made me do is also reevaluate the society around me. I was reading books, and I was also looking at Speaker's Corner. That these debates came up, and I remember them talking about. I remember Hamza's 5 poisons came up. I don't know if you've heard of that. So yeah, Hamza's 5 poisons came up, which is he believes that there's 5 things destroying society, which is sexual immorality, alcohol, drugs, interest dealings, and so these are this made me when I heard this, it made me sort of reflect on the society I live in, and I knew that Islam was actually prohibiting all this stuff. So I think, like I said, cutting a long story short, I started looking more and more into it, and I think one of the triggers for me is I started to see Islam as a really beautiful thing overall, and I started to actually even believe that it might be true. But something deep inside me thought that it's great for people from the Middle East. It's great for Pakistan. Great for them that they have that religion. Great for my niece. And there was kind of inside there was something that it wasn't really relatable to me, until I saw a guy called Hamza at Speaker's Corner. I don't know if you know him.
Is that Hamza from EF Dawah?
Hamza from EF Dawah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I saw him arguing, and like I said, I'd already gone through vast research up to this point. But when I saw a white guy dressed like me, arguing for Islam, so it was like something clicked in my head. Like, hang on a minute, this could actually be for you. You start hearing that Islam actually came for all mankind, and when I saw that, something sort of clicked. So yeah, then I started to look more and more into it, and to be honest, I think I'd accepted it before I took my Shahada. But I think the issue for me was, by becoming Muslim, it was almost, for me, I saw it was kind of like a social suicide amongst my friendship groups. It was, people were going to be concerned that I was going to go off to Syria. There was something really, and I was in a relationship with a non-Muslim girl. So all of these things kind of made me sort of push it down the grass. But I think, the one day came where I thought, you know what, I believe in Allah, and I believe Muhammad, peace upon him, is the last final messenger. So I was a Muslim. So I took my Shahada.
SubhanAllah. How did you end up so that was a year process, was it?
Yeah, it was over a year, I'd say, yeah.
And then when did you take your Shahada? Were you like by yourself? Were you with others?
It's funny. I actually remember. I remember the moment I said I've got to do this, and it sounds really cringy, and I'm not really a cringy sort of guy. But I was driving, and it was February, and it was snowing, and I was driving down this road, and there was all these trees at the side, and it was snowing, and something just hit me. It was just something at that moment. I thought, I'm a Muslim. What am I holding back? Why am I? What I'm actually dealing with here is a lot bigger than the concerns in the back of my head, about what people are going to think of me, what all those things were sort of side issues. I was a Muslim, and so, yeah, I got in touch with Hamza and did my Shahada over the phone more or less straight away that evening.
Wow. I have a question, but that I think that we've never actually approached in Freshly Grounded, but your story reminded me of it. So you mentioned that you were with a non-Muslim woman at the time, and also that your friend circle, you're worried about what your friend circle was saying, and answer as much or as little of this as you are comfortable to, because I don't want to delve into anything that you're not happy to talk about, but the reason I ask is, once or twice I've had interactions with brothers, with people, with guys who have accepted that Islam is the truth, like, bro, like, without a shadow of doubt, and but yet not taking their Shahada, and unfortunately some of them never having gone forward and taken their Shahada, and obviously alhamdulillah, while they're still alive, we make dua that they do take their Shahada, but they kind of like, went over that hill and have just kind of went past it, and solely because they were worried. They knew that their partner would leave them. And obviously I can't belittle that and say, how can you choose a person over like your way of life? But because
Yeah.
it's a tough one, right? So it's not something to belittle, but how does a person get over that humongous challenge of that and their social circle in general, thinking perhaps I'm never gonna have these friends ever again?
Yeah, I think like you exactly quite rightly said, is that what we're talking about here, when we're talking about salvation, Islam, your afterlife, we're talking about something a lot bigger than relationships with people. But the thing is, that's easy to say. But as a new Muslim, you're fragile. You haven't yet built your foundations. So you can be toppled over the edge. And many people, like you say, avoid taking their shahada because they don't want to leave the person they're with. They don't want to lose family members. And I think what we do in our minds is we often think the worst. We think we're sure that they're going to leave us. I thought my family were going to react badly, and I thought my partner was going to leave me. Neither of those happened, and I'm not saying they do happen, but I was sure it was going to happen. And I think the best thing you can kind of do is use it as an opportunity to almost give them dawah yourself, to show them that Islam has actually turned you into, all of a sudden, perhaps I'm Jordan 2.0. I'm someone better than I was before, and if you can show that definitely helps. But this is definitely a problem amongst new Muslims, and I urge sort of born Muslims or even just people that are advising reverts is to sort of, because a lot of the advice you hear, because I did hear this, I heard that Muslim man can't marry a non-Muslim woman, and so as soon as you take your shahada, that has to be cut, and the thing is, if you take your shahada and you cut everything off, because there are so many other things you have to give up, things like alcohol, sometimes people, that's a big part of people's lives, other things in people's lives that are changing, that you're planting a seed, and that may not grow overnight for some people. Now, it doesn't mean that you are condoning haram behavior, but I think there needs to be that understanding that a revert, maybe the first thing is that they take the shahada and they're comfortable doing it.
The shahada is the most important thing, right?
Yeah, we can't be delaying that. You've got to take the shahada, and then there's a process of allowing I think you should give people around you the time. You don't have to leave everybody. You don't have to do a runner. You don't have to become somebody that's completely Arab dressing and you cut all your non-Muslim friends. That's not what your shahada does. I think the most important thing is you take your shahada and then you get onto the second pillar. You do your prayers and you trust in Allah, and then you go from there.